How's it going, everybody? Spencer Presley here with another review. Today I'm reviewing probably what will go down as one of the weirdest Switch exclusives, or Switch console exclusives. Today I'm talking all about Touken Ranbu Warriors. And the chance that you already know what this game is really slim. The chance that you might know what Touken Ranbu is even slimmer. But I'm going to review this game not just because the amazing folks at Koei Tecmo America gave me a review code, but I did purchase a physical copy myself because the fact that this even came out in the West is crazy enough. I have been looking forward to this since a Japanese Nintendo Direct revealed it, and it's just been such a weird thing for me of like, hey, I like the Warriors games, I love Omega Force, let's see what they're going to do on a Switch exclusive. Now, by the time this game finally did come out in the West, it is also available on PC, so you do have options, but this review is showing off footage, and all of my impressions are from the Nintendo Switch version. So, quick rundown of what is Touken Ranbu. Touken Ranbu is a game that started all the way back in 2015, and it was originally developed by Nitro Plus and is published by DMM Games. So Nitro Plus basically created this world of Touken Ranbu, and it became this kind of multimedia franchise of what if we took famous Japanese mythological weapons and made them real personifications, mostly hot guys. And this game takes that cast of characters, puts it into a warrior-style combat, but what's interesting about this game, and not a lot of people have talked about it, it's clearly a Warriors game developed tried and true by Omega Force, but it was also co-developed by Ruby Party. Ruby Party is a developer who has primarily worked on otome games. Otome games are usually visual novels or very story-heavy games that are primarily marketed towards women and star large casts of men. And boy, that is Touken Ranbu Warriors to a T. So, Touken Ranbu Warriors being developed by Omega Force for the gameplay and Ruby Party for the story really was a match made in heaven, and this game is really kind of doing something interesting. It's not going to be the most complex or deep Warriors game out there, but thankfully it is also a game that you can jump into even if you have very little knowledge of the Touken Ranbu series, just like myself. I did a lot of research, and I actually checked out the mobile game myself just to kind of get to grips of what the gameplay was originally like on the mobile version and PC, and see how it was translated into a Warriors game. And I was really surprised with it. The gameplay itself is a in the beginning, very overly simplified Warriors game. Light attack, heavy attack, specials, a system moves, and so on, with upgrade trees, items, skills to equip, and whatnot. But what's interesting about this has got to be one of the most story, or at least dialogue-heavy Warriors games I have ever seen Omega Force to make. And the inclusion of Ruby Party really shows here with the length of the story. The story, for me, took about almost 30 hours just on my first playthrough playing the game on normal. And there were still tons of other side missions or accomplishments to try and do. There were lots of optional side conversations. A big thing with this game is all about bonds. You are always going into battle with two characters, and the bonds also don't stop with the gameplay. It also is a big factor of the story. There are teams. Each one of the party members are segmented into different teams. Teams can work together on missions to accomplish different tasks and so on. But then also, the more you play with different characters or interact with each other, you have a bond level, and that bond level can go from 0 all the way to level 5 when it maxes out. So this is something that you don't have to do, it just means that you unlock more stuff. So if your bond level grows, you'll have a higher chance of them defending you, or having a chance of them attacking with you, or your combo attacks doing more damage. So it's just stuff that really feeds into each other, and I will say, this game definitely starts a little too slow. Its prologue is really an oversimplification of everything stretched across multiple tiny missions, and could probably be sped up, but once you get into the flow of the game, everything keeps getting bigger and bigger. When the roster has over half of sword fighters, it's nice that there doesn't feel like there's too much copy and paste, which is always something to kind of worry about with these warrior games. So the gameplay is very much simple of you select a mission, you're progressing the story, you're fighting bosses, and along with also defeating hundreds of enemies, you're also sometimes being tasked to investigate. Investigation missions normally require you to slow down, look for secret paths, look for alternate ways, maybe sneaking around other missions. There are some missions that are not just going to be mashed to win, but might have to be like, hey, how do you catch this thief, or how do you disable these traps? And I really appreciated like the diversity of the missions. They always had a nice flow of big battles, small battles, larger areas, more intimate areas. And it was kind of nice of like the campaign missions never felt that stale, and because the stages were so small and almost felt like micro missions, I never felt like I was replaying the same stages over and over, even though I'm sure there's really only a handful of maps in the game, even though they split up all of these different maps into mini sections for all of your missions. So I really do appreciate the smaller maps for the fact of, hey, if you're playing this in a portable sense, this is really pick up and play friendly. Obviously, it looks really nice on your TV, even the Switch version, but the fact that this really felt like this was something to be pick up and play friendly or sit down and lose hours to, and I really commend them for that. I do have one problem, though, and it does kind of stem with the map size. The map size clearly limits the fact that this is such a small kind of mission scale that two-player mode could never work. This is a strictly single-player only game, which didn't deter my excitement for the game at all, but the whole time I was playing it, I kept thinking, gosh, I really love these warrior games, but why isn't there a co-op mode? This whole game is about bonds. You always go into every mission with you and a partner, and if you could have done that split screen, I think it would have made the game even better. The problem is the maps and the missions were clearly designed to be very linear, very focused, and there's never really that much exploration. It's just having two players would have made everything easy, if not kind of breaking the formula and the balance of everything. So that was disappointing, but again, the game never advertised itself as being multiplayer. It was just something that kept sticking out in my brain of like, man, I really liked learning about all of these different characters and personifications, but I never had the chance to be like, hey, let me invite a friend over and play co-op, which just really stinks because Omega Force has done this with so many games. Like, the fact that I played almost the entirety of Age of Calamity and co-op made that a much better game, even though I loved it on its own, just the fact that I got to share that with someone else. While I am going through complaints, I do have one other quick one. I really enjoyed the flow of the game. I think it has a really good loop of getting money, getting necessary materials, upgrading your skill trees, getting new attacks, buffing your character. And it was just really good and snappy of like, once you would get in and out of missions, it always felt like your character was really getting noticeably stronger, even though you weren't unlocking anything too crazy in terms of moves. It was just a very natural, satisfying progression. I really liked the flow of the game after the prologue. I do want to say this though, unfortunately the ending of the game does get into that thing that I really don't like with a lot of games of, hey, the ending is a really big worlds colliding moment, but you are going to have to fight every boss you fought through the past campaign just to fight one new boss. And it just felt kind of rushed. And I really enjoyed the story of just like, hey, this is a group of warriors going through time, trying to fix things. It's a really simple story, but it has a lot of fun character moments that I liked with it. But the ending, while fun, the boss rush to get there just never felt satisfying for me. I do have to say though, overall this game is very good bang for your buck if you are buying this game digitally or physically for $60. It's more than got enough content. Thankfully there is a demo. It is the entirety of the prologue, so like I said, while that prologue's pretty slow, it gives you a good grasp of what the different characters play like, what the game looks like, what the game performs like. So whether you have it on PC or Switch, I highly recommend, if you're kind of on the fence, check out the demo. You can't go wrong with that. I personally thought that it was definitely worth the $60. What I will have to say is definitely not worth any extra money is all of the DLC. The DLC is extremely expensive and is really just 3 additional pieces of content. You can buy new background settings, so if you want to see your home base be snowing, fall, rain, stuff like that, that's all DLC. Never affects anything. Yes, it looks different and you see that home base quite a lot, but for me, it always just felt like such a minor thing of like, this should have just either been in the game or something I unlocked. It never felt like something that seemed worth to buy. And then there are also additional songs, so if you'd like to unlock songs from the original game, Touken Ranbu, you can pay for those songs. I have no nostalgia for that, so for me it was like, cool, I'm glad this is here. I don't think I would recommend buying it. The soundtrack already for Touken Ranbu is very, very good. Really nice mix. Kind of felt like a bit of a more poppy Samurai Warriors, so if you kind of know what that sort of soundtrack is like, especially considering I'm just coming off of last year playing Samurai Warriors 5, I was glad that it didn't feel too samey. They still feel very distinct and different from each other, not only in the gameplay, but presentation and music as well. But yeah, the DLC music for the original game just is nothing to really write home about unless you're like a die-hard fan. And then finally there are the character costumes, and really I should just say character costume. Every character has a casual DLC costume you can wear, and it's basically just like, hey, here's them in a tracksuit. Here's them in something you might see them wearing while they're doing spring cleaning or a lab coat. It's fine. All the costumes in the base game are infinitely better and more interesting looking. It's just kind of like, hey, do you like how this character looks in that costume? There you go, there's a really expensive DLC costume. You're not missing anything, there's no extra missions, maps, modes, anything like that. So while the DLC is definitely something I wouldn't recommend any of it for, at least they're not like hiding anything. All the gameplay is still there. And also, I do want to give a quick shout out to one of the weirdest things that this game had that I thankfully never got sick of, is minigames. So in between missions in your home base, you can talk to other characters, invest in your skill trees, buy things in the store, equip different items, and you can also every now and then do minigames. And they are very weird because I'm not used to playing minigames where I'm trying to catch a large mythical fox with my friend playing tag in the backyard, or making tea, trying to predict the right time to stop, matching poses, pounding mochi. It's a lot of weird things, but they are just the right length to never get boring to play them over and over and over. I think in total there's about 8 different mini-games, and it was interesting enough because the reward for doing them perfect or as good as you can was always beneficial enough that it never made sense to skip them. So even if like you don't like the mini-games, that's fine, but if you get good at them, you will continue to get more money, more materials, and making your character overall stronger and better in the process. So, Touken Ranbu Warrior, I don't think you're going to be a game that's going to change anyone's opinion on the warrior genre, but if you're someone who either hasn't played them in a while or is just a fan of these cast of characters, the story is really solid, the gameplay is definitely interesting. I was really surprised how much the campaign of the game kept my attention, and even with all the few minor complaints I have, it is still thankfully one of the better Warriors games I have played recently, and considering how much I really did not like Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires, I am glad to say that this game ran well, performed well, was fun to play, and was just a nice reminder to myself of, hey, most of these games are pretty good. There are the rare exceptions. Not everything is a Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires, thankfully. So, Omega Force and Ruby Party, you did a really great job of bringing this property I had never heard of beforehand with Touken Ranbu and bringing it to a whole new audience on Switch and PC in the West. So, if you are a fan of Touken Ranbu or have checked out this game, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you have any other questions I may not have covered? Let me know. I will also be more than glad to answer any kind of questions you have in the comments below. If you enjoyed reviews like this, please consider subscribing. It really does help. And yeah, besides that, once again, thank you to Koei Tecmo for providing a review code for this. Thank you all again so much for watching this video, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.